If you're looking to give your stock exhaust a little bit more growl, or perhaps take your aftermarket axle back to the next level, well then you should definitely consider adding the Roush cut and clamp X-Pipe that we have here today. Now this X-Pipe will replace the stock resonator on your 2015 and newer GT with a 2.5-inch mandrel bent stainless steel tubing piece, all for right around the low $300 price point. Now, as the name implies, this thing will involve some cutting for the install here, guys. So figure a healthy 2 out of 3 wrenches on the old difficulty meter, maybe a couple of hours to complete from start to finish. But if you hang with me for a bit, we'll show you how it's done later in the video. All right, so when the S550 GT came around, the search for ways to make it sound even better led us to the factory resonator, right? Now, companies quickly determined it was a huge bottleneck for performance and sound, and at that point, those X and H-pipe options were produced to replace that often referred to suitcase resonator. Now, just replacing the resonator by itself really woke up the factory exhaust, and for a lot of people, it was just the increase the Mustang needed. Now, for others, pairing an aftermarket X or H-pipe with an aftermarket axleback was a way to really crank up that volume even further. But let's talk a little bit more about what you can expect with the Roush X-Pipe in place, and with your factory exhaust still installed, you are going to increase the bark ever so slightly. So figuring the stock exhaust is just a 1 out of 5 on the Wake the Neighbor scale. With this guy in place, the Roush X-Pipe, and your factory axleback, we're gonna bump that up to a strong 2 out of 5 on my 1 to 5 or 1 to Wake the Neighbor scale. It certainly is a noticeable increase, but it's not completely crazy by any stretch of the imagination. Now, if you're starting with an aftermarket axleback on your ride and you add the Roush X-Pipe to the equation, well, obviously expect that to get even louder depending on what system you're using. Now, for instance, if you're already using a corresponding Roush axleback, which is pretty gnarly by itself, I would say a healthy 4 out of 5 on my Wake the Neighbor scale. Well, adding the Roush X-Pipe in place of that factory resonator will bring that combo into full 5 out of 5 territory. Now, this increase in volume is made possible by ditching that heavy and super restrictive factory suitcase style resonator, which, by the way, will actually save you 12 pounds by cutting that thing out and throwing on the X-Pipe here from Roush. Always like pointing out some weight savings when they do apply. Now, the Roush X-Pipe will add a little bit more rasp to the stock or aftermarket exhaust, thanks to that X-Pipe design, which typically does contribute to some smaller top-end gains along with that higher pitch tone that the Coyote is sometimes notorious for. Now, if you're not a huge fan of this and maybe wanted to mellow that out a little bit, well, you might want to consider an aftermarket H-pipe instead, which is known for achieving a slightly deeper tone. Now, as for your materials and construction, well, the Roush is certainly going to deliver some pretty solid stuff throughout. This does include the full stainless steel build here, guys, 409 grade to be exact. That does include the small amount of mandrel bent tubing, and of course all of your clamps needed to get everything in place. Now, because we are working with a full stainless steel build, Roush is going to throw a 3-year warranty at the X-Pipe here in case you run into any issues. It's also worth mentioning here, guys, that the Roush is not going to affect your cats at all, because this is going to install after the manifolds and after your cats. Also worth pointing out here is that the X-Pipe is compatible with active and non-active exhaust cars, along with cars equipped with both stock and aftermarket systems as well. But now let's shift gears and get into the install. And again, you will need to break out your favorite cutting device for this one. That's why the site is just gonna bump it up to a soft 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. I'm a big fan of the Sawzall myself, but hey, feel free to break out whatever works best for you in your situation. But now, to give you a better idea of just how and where to cut with this thing, feel free to check out our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
The tools you'll need for this install will be a cutting tool, a deburring tool, a mallet, a permanent marker, measuring device, 15mm deep socket, 13mm deep socket, some spray lubricant, a ratchet, and an impact. Hi everyone. Today we're going to be installing a Resonator Delete X-Pipe. But before we get started with that, let's take a look at the video of how to uninstall our stock system.
First step here, guys, grab a 15mm deep socket. We're gonna loosen up, but not completely remove, the nuts on both of the band clamps here, connecting your factory resonator to your headers. So we're just gonna loosen these guys up. All right, next step, we're gonna be at our rear subframe right behind our diff. Now you'll see these hangers connect to the subframe itself using two 13mm bolts. Now we don't have to remove the hangers from the isolators. We're actually just gonna unbolt the whole isolator bracket from the frame. So grab a 13mm socket, and I like to use an extension to go right over the sway bar, and we're gonna remove these. Now from there, what I'm gonna do is just lift up on this and swing these guys down. There's a little locking tab here that just hooks in. We just wanna unhook that. So you may have to lift up on the exhaust and then bring it down. All right, next step, before we remove the whole exhaust in one piece, I recommend grabbing WD-40 or something similar with this needle here to just lubricate the hanger above your tips. This is gonna make removing it a whole lot easier. All right, do the same thing on the other side. Next step, guys, we're gonna take our exhaust off all in one piece. Now, you may want a helping hand if you're using a lift like we are. If you're working on the ground, it might be a little easier for you to do by yourself. I'd recommend having a mallet to knock these band clamps back a little bit, disconnect it from this side, swing it back toward the front of the vehicle, and set it aside.
Our first step in the install of our X-Pipe is going to be very critical in measuring the distance that we need to cut off. Now this can be done on the vehicle, but for demonstration purposes, we've decided to do ours here on the table. Okay, so what we have to do is measure from the back of the resonator down the pipe 5.5 inches and mark that so we know where to cut. Now we can use our Sawzall, or if you've got a cutting wheel, you can use that as well. And we're going to cut right on that line that we just measured earlier. Now that we've got our resonator separated from the rest of the exhaust, the next thing we want to do is clean up the exhaust that's left that we're going to reuse around the edges so that they fit around the clamps. Now you can use either a power tool such as what we've got, or even a standard hand file will work just as well. Now we can reinstall our front clamps, making sure that the slots line up with the tabs. Okay, now we're ready to slide our X-Pipe into our clamps. One thing to note though is that you'll notice that the end of the X-Pipe, one pipe curves more than the other. That goes onto the passenger side. Now we're going to go ahead and snug up our front clamps using our 15mm socket. Now we can go ahead and slide our new band clamps onto our X-Pipe and get ready to install the rest of the exhaust. Now we can go ahead and install the passenger side muffler by sliding the support arm into the rearmost hanger. Once you've got the support rod into the rear hanger, now we can slide it forward and into the new X-Pipe. Okay, once we've got the two pipes connected, we'll go ahead and snug up our clamp using our 15mm socket. Now we can reinstall the hanger that goes behind the differential, making sure that the tab hooks into the slot on the cross member. Now we can reinstall our bolt using our 13mm socket. Now repeat those steps for the other side. Now that we've got our system completely installed again, we can go ahead and use our 15mm socket and tighten all the clamps, and our 13mm socket to tighten up the hangers in the rear. And that wraps up our review and install of the Roush Cut and Clamp Resonator Delete X-Pipe for the 15 to current Mustang GT. Thanks for watching, and remember, for all things Mustang, keep it right here on AmericanMuscle.com.